before I begin, I'd like to quickly mention that I'm looking to stream a few times over the coming weeks. I plan to overhaul how I do playthroughs, and I'm going to use these streams as an opportunity to practice and get my setup working. So drop by. I haven't really figured out when, where and what I'll be doing on these streams, but I'll be looking to extend invites to be a part of them on my Discord server. So look into joining that via the description if you're interested. And with that promotion out of the way, let's start the video proper. For today's review, I looked at 3 potential candidates that had been released or overhauled in the last few weeks. There was Infinite, there was a new remake of the popular Mystic Realm level pack, and there was IwaflorChars, which bundles the also popular Gemma the Tarsier cat with a new ally named Blake. I was originally going to do Mystic Realm, but to be brutally honest, it was really pissing me off, and the more I played, the more I disliked it. So I put it aside for now, and went for something a bit more basic. I last covered Gemma way back in September 2021, and even ignoring the brand new character that's been added to her mod, she's had plenty of updates in the years since. So, leaving Blake the Hammer Raw for part 2 of the IwaflorChars review, let's rock out with Gemma Lucidia Teresa Iwaflor the Tarsier cat. Although her full name is long and complicated, no one needs multiple double-barreled surnames, Gemma's moveset is a nice and simple return to basics. For all of the updates and bug fixes she's received over the years, the actual, honest-to-goodness core of her gameplay remains mostly untouched from the glory days of early V2.2. Don't expect long mid-air combo strings where you can avoid touching the floor for an entire level. Don't expect the need to pull up the in-game console to write out a command that switches between 3 different moveset lists. Don't expect to get lost trying to remember the specific string of actions needed to pull off the move you're looking for, because Gemma only has 2. There's the spin dash, which is just the same as it always is, and by double jumping, you can pull off her unique Terrorizer ability. If you've played as Gemma yourself in the past, or even if you just remember my old video, this remains almost exactly the same. You'll drop to the ground, rip up a piece of rock, and then bounce back up. Cancel it early by letting go of jump before reaching the ground, and it basically works as a stomp. Cancel it after riding the rock to let it go, and give yourself an extra jump. Land the rock on top of an enemy, and both will be destroyed. You'll also get a second use of the Terrorizer, which would otherwise require you to hit solid ground before being used again. That's it. No real combat potential over your spin jump, no way to supercharge it, and no way to use it to completely trivialize a level. I love it! Whether it's because of or in spite of its simplicity, the Terrorizer is solid, dependable, and versatile. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Gemma has some revolutionary tech brimming just below the crust, nor will I claim I've mastered this little geokinetic. I will say that I found ways to use this simple drop and rock for a whole variety of things. It's supposed to be used for getting some height, right? Well, if you want to sacrifice some of that in favour of some speed, then finding a slope and bouncing off of it will send you flying. If a slope isn't available, then you can charge a spin dash on your rock platform to blast off when you land. You can also massively increase your height gained, either by bouncing off successive enemies, which boosts the power of the Terrorizer until you land, or by using the initial slam to power springs. It's not great for this, but you can also use the Terrorizer to hit enemies from a distance, as the rock it forms remains damaging until it breaks apart on the ground. There's no targeting or homing effect to help you with this, but there were a few times I was able to keep a bad neck bounce combo going in a crowded area when I unintentionally hit something with the rock off screen. With all that in mind, Gemma managed to hold my attention even if I ultimately was just performing the same action again and again. I'm not as martial about believing characters should be simple as I once was, but I can't lie about how I enjoyed going back to a moveset this grounded. For a while now, it felt like every character I've played has been powerful enough that the level design became flat. Even if a little thought was necessary to use them, their movesets could ultimately get anywhere and everywhere in a level, and I sort of started slipping into autopilot as I charted the same optimal path that blasted over everything. It was fun going back to a character who can't do that. Gemma may be powerful and unexpectedly versatile, but the Terrorizer isn't going to let you fly over gaps as big as this. It won't let you climb towers like this in a matter of seconds. You will need to stick broadly to the same path as the vanilla roster, and so shortcuts become less something like this, and instead becomes something more like this. It's been a long time since I've played as someone this restricted, even if Gemma is by no means weak. It was really enjoyable to think about these vanilla levels like this again, and I have to thank Gemma for reminding me that they are pretty fun even when I'm not skipping over most of them. What a novel concept. I've reread some of my older scripts and realised that I haven't explained my rationale for a good superform very well. I've said things about wanting unique powers and big overhauls to how you play as a character, and that's not really true. What I really mean is that I want my superform to feel powerful, like the incredible surge of power it's described as and meant to be. And when I complain about your cookie cutter, yellow fur, increased speed, higher jumps, invincibility superforms, that's not so much because of the abilities or the physical changes, and more so because those abilities and changes don't make me feel like I've ascended and am now experiencing my 50 seconds of gifted divinity. Gemma avoids that by pulling off every trick in the book to set herself apart. A new set of sprites, a brand new colour, and a simple but effective buff. Infinite Terrorizers maybe isn't the most imaginative change, but it is certainly the most impactful one you could pull out. No longer do you need to aim for Bannocs or monitors to repeat the ability or to boost its power, as you can now pull off as many supercharged Terrorizers in a single string as you like. It's simple, it's effective, and it's fun. It fits Gemma perfectly, and I like the thought behind the design and its execution, so I really have no complaints. If I had to point to a single aspect of Gemma that I feel isn't quite as strong as everything else, I'd probably point to her sprites. Ironic, seeing as they've been remade a dozen times, and how she might have one of the longest sprite lists I've yet seen. They're really not bad though, and I think the character design, colour racing and shading is all more than good enough. I originally came into writing this review with the intention of critiquing how enormous her eyes are, which is massively out of step with the SW2 style that everything else does a decent job of emulating. But then I searched up what a tarsier actually looks like.
No sir, I don't like it.
Apparently, the tarsier's eyes can grow to be larger than their brains, and their entire body has had to evolve around them. So, bearing that in mind, something about the eyes does feel a little off, but I suppose I can't really complain about them being too big. I was also going to complain about how thin her tail is, but that is another case of accurate anatomy, so I'll once more settle for saying that it feels a little off. I think it moves around just a little too much, and it can get a bit distracting sometimes. The superform is nice, and I like how her braid unravelling has caused her to take on those famous superform design traits with her upturned hair. I think her front fringe could also do with being lifted up as well, as I think it currently gets a little too close to her eyes in both of her forms. The colour is also really fantastic, and it does a better job than her base form of contrasting against her clothes. So again, while I don't think the sprites are as strong as a moveset or superform, I also certainly don't think they're bad or even mediocre. They're good. I just think that there are still a few tweaks that could be made here or there with the eyes and the tail. But if you're watching this, Ralph Jeremy 65, please do not take that as me telling you to spend another 4 years making those tweaks. If you want to import all of your other OC's characters, please do that first. Overall, Gemma is a shining example that sometimes simplicity is king. Even on release, she wasn't that difficult to get to grips with, and with the constant feature creep that the SRB2 modding scene has, she seems almost quaint in the modern day. Despite that, I really enjoyed my time playing as her, and the limited scope gave Ralph Jeremy 65 more time to really perfect the Terrorizer. It's simple and the only thing in a moveset of any note, but because of that, you can really learn how to use it to its full advantage for all sorts of purposes beyond what is given in the ability's description. Superform is good, sprites aren't perfect, but I'd rather the dev's time is spent finishing the other two characters before they think about looping back to look at these for the, 9th time. Speaking of other characters, look out for my review of Gemma's partner, Blake the Tamaror, which should hopefully come out soon. I'll also hopefully be able to start the first few streams soon after this video comes out. But whatever comes out first, I hope you enjoyed this video. Ciao.